Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Anime Villainous how-to video. You may have guessed it, but I'm Chaos in the Sky, and today we'll be looking at how to play as Sebastian Michaelis from Black Butler in Anime Villainous. Sebastian is a butler, who also just happens to be a demon. Due to his true nature, Sebastian is incredibly powerful, and there are few who can cause him worry. As a demon, Sebastian seeks to consume souls that he finds high quality, which leads him to the upcoming Earl of Phantom Hive Manor, Ciel. Entering into a Faustian contract with Ciel Phantom Hive, Sebastian serves him faithfully as his butler, and performs whatever orders Ciel wishes of him. In exchange, once Ciel has accomplished his goals of revenge, Sebastian will get his soul as compensation. Despite obeying Ciel and managing his household flawlessly, for Sebastian, that is all that truly matters, so he can satiate his demonic hunger. All Sebastian wants is to claim Ciel's soul, and in Anime Villainous he achieves this objective by discarding Ciel. However, while that may sound simple, it's actually very complex. To first start understanding how to achieve this objective, let's look at Ciel himself, who is an ally tile that starts in Sebastian's territory. When you play as Sebastian, Ciel will already be in play at the Phantom Hive Manor, Sebastian's leftmost location. Ciel is a 0-strength ally, and he has two abilities. Firstly, Ciel can only be discarded by Delicious Soul, which is an effect in Sebastian's villain deck. Secondly, each time you remove a card from the game, you place a contract token on Ciel. What are these contract tokens and why are they important, you may ask? The answer for that is actually with Delicious Soul, the effect card. Delicious Soul can only be played if Ciel is at Sebastian's location. Once played, Delicious Soul lets you choose a card from your deck or discard pile, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. If Ciel has 3 or more contract tokens when you do this, you then discard Ciel. This makes Delicious Soul not only necessary for your objective, but it's also a very helpful card for getting other cards that you want when you want them. For Sebastian, who has a lot of hoops to jump through for his objective, this is invaluable. So, since Delicious Soul is the only way to discard Ciel, as stated by Ciel's own ability, that means you must get 3 contract tokens onto Ciel to be able to complete your objective. To do that, you'll have to remove at least 3 cards from the game, as that will cause contract tokens to be placed on Ciel. Before we talk about how to remove cards for those contract tokens, let's back up just a little bit to look at Sebastian's villain ability. It's very simple. Sebastian gets +2 strength if he is at Ciel's location. Sebastian has 2 strength by default, so being with Ciel puts him up to 4 strength, which allows Sebastian to clash with nearly all of the heroes in his Fate deck. Ciel's position in your territory is important for a multitude of different factors: Delicious Soul, Sebastian's ability, and several more cards, as we'll see. So when playing as Sebastian, always keep Ciel's location in mind, and be ready to plan your turns around it. With that addressed, let's get on to the main focus of how you'll be getting contract tokens. You have to remove at least 3 cards from the game to be able to discard Ciel, and there are 5 cards in Sebastian's deck that can be removed. These are all 1-cost effects that are set aside when played, and have specific goals you must achieve to then remove them from the game. So we'll cover each of these 5 one by one, starting with Grandiose Party. When played, you set it aside, then, at the end of your next turn, if you have 6 or more cards in your hand, and Sebastian is at Phantom Hive Manor, you remove Grandiose Party from the game. Otherwise, you just discard it. Phantom Hive Manor, as we covered, is Sebastian's leftmost location, and there are a few cards in Sebastian's deck that allow him to get up to 6 cards into his hand. Important things to note here are, first of all, that all of these removable effects follow this structure. They are set aside when played, and at the end of your following turn, they are either removed or discarded, depending on if you achieve their goal or not. Second of all, 3 of these 5 effects are going to require the use of other cards to complete the requirements. There is no way for Sebastian to get 6 cards in his hand without using other cards to do so, for example. For now, we're just going to cover all 5 of the removable cards. Then, as we go over the rest of Sebastian's villain deck, how you'll actually be able to achieve the goals of these removable cards will become more apparent. After Grandiose Party, we have Dark Influence. After being set aside at the end of your next turn, if you have 6 or more power and Sebastian is the only other character at Ciel's location, you remove Dark Influence from the game. Otherwise, you discard it. This effect is actually achievable without the use of other cards, since you just have to stockpile power and then put Sebastian and Ciel at the same location. But of course there are cards that can make this objective easier, as we'll see later. The most important thing to notice here is that there can be no characters except for Ciel and Sebastian at their location to remove Dark Influence. Don't forget that any card with a strength value, whether it be hero or ally, is considered a character. Following Dark Influence, we have Strict Discipline. Once set aside, at the end of your next turn, if Sebastian and allies at his location total 12 or more strength, you remove Strict Discipline from the game. Otherwise, discard. This one will likely require you to stack a couple of allies to be able to reach 12 strength, and probably rely on Sebastian's ability to get an extra 2 strength from being at CL's location. Next is Chess Negotiation. After you set it aside, at the end of your next turn, if there is at least one item and one ally at each location, you remove Chess Negotiation. This one can be a little difficult, as we'll see later that Sebastian only just has enough items to achieve this. Still, once you've been playing out those items and allies for a while, it can be pretty easy to get the setup in place. The last of the removable effects is Cleaning Up. You set it aside, and then at the end of your next turn, if there are no heroes in your territory, you remove Cleaning Up from the game. This is the other effect that has no actual need for other cards, but depending on how much you've been faded, you may find yourself really needing the assistance. If you've already got a clear territory though, Cleaning Up can be hard to stop, and will probably end up being one of your go-to for removed cards. And there we have it, all 5 cards that Sebastian is capable of removing from the game. There's one more very important facet to these cards that I want to point out before we move on to the rest of the villain deck, which is that there is nothing stopping you from playing more than one of them at a time. Sebastian has one double play location, and he has other cards that can get him more player card actions as well. This means if you play more than one of these 5 effects, you could potentially get more than one contract token in a single turn. Another good reason to take advantage of playing more than one at a time is that depending on your fate deck, you may make it impossible for your opponents to stop you from getting at least one contract token. If they get a fate that stops one effect but not the other, you'll guarantee yourself 1/3 of your objective. Now then, let's get into all the other cards in the villain deck that'll help you on your journey to claiming 3 contract tokens. First up are the last 2 effects in Sebastian's deck, I'll Do It Myself and Yes, My Lord. I'll Do It Myself is a card that lets you move CL to a location that has a hero. After doing so, you can have a hero at CL's new location lose 1 strength. This is handy because it can weaken some heroes to be in range of vanquishes they otherwise wouldn't be. More so than that, it lets you have more control over moving CL, and with Sebastian's ability, putting him at heroes' locations means they're likely to be clashed with shortly after. Yes, My Lord also has a focus on heroes, but instead of moving CL, it moves Sebastian to CL's location. Once Sebastian has been moved by this effect, you can then clash with a hero if there is one at Sebastian's new location, and must then end your turn. This is a strong way to finish up your turn and defeat a hero, as Sebastian's ability will bring him up to 4 strength, since Yes, My Lord forces him to CL's location. These cards are both excellent options for dealing with heroes in your territory, which will be a great help in removing Cleaning Up for a contract token. Now we have Sebastian's items, which are vital for chess negotiation. Our first item is Morning Tea, which has it where if you would move CL from Morning Tea's location, you may move CL to any location, rather than just an adjacent one. Where CL is in your territory is very important, so any more flexibility you can have in moving him will be vital. Next is Pocket Watch. Each time CL is moved to Pocket Watch's location by Sebastian, you may choose a card from your discard pile and put it into your hand. This, of course, is great just to get back cards you want, especially removable effects if you failed to remove them earlier. But more than that, it's one of the ways to get more cards in your hand for the 6 required with Grandiose Party. So now we have the Phantom Hive Ring, and oh, let me tell you, this one is wild. Once per turn, if Sebastian is at Phantom Hive Ring's location and CL is not, you may perform 1 available non-fate action at CL's location. This card is perhaps Sebastian's strongest, and can go a long way to helping you with several removable effects. You can use it to gain more power, play more cards, or even get in some extra move actions. The Phantom Hive Ring can do it all, depending on where CL is at, and you'll want to get it in play as soon as you can to start making use of it. There's one last item in Sebastian's deck, and that's his trusty Silverware. Unlike the other 3 items that just get played to whatever location you like, Silverware is attached to Sebastian when played. With Silverware, Sebastian gets +2 strength, but after you clash, you have to discard Silverware. There are 2 copies of Silverware, which means that alongside Sebastian's ability, he can get to a ridiculous 8 strength if he's at CL's location with both attached. This can go a very long way in getting the 12 strength needed for strict discipline. Also, you may be connecting the dots by now about chess negotiation. For chess negotiation, you need an item at all 4 locations, and Silverware is your 4th item. Remember that when an item is attached to a villain, that item is considered to be at the villain's location, so the location of the mover. This means to complete chess negotiation, you'll have to have the other 3 items in play at different locations, and then have at least 1 silverware attached to Sebastian. Sebastian will have to be at that 4th item lacking location when chess negotiation tries to resolve if you want the contract token from it. Chess negotiation needs more than just items, though. It also needs an ally at every location. CL counts towards those needed allies, but we'll need at least 3 others, so let's go over Sebastian's allies. First up, we have Tanaka and Baldroy. Tanaka's ability is that when other allies at his location are discarded in a Vanquish action, you may put those allies into your hand. This is incredibly useful for Grandiose Party, as Tanaka can get you multiple cards back in hand with a single Vanquish action. After Tanaka is Baldroy, a 0 strength ally that gets +1 strength for each item in your territory. As we've already covered, Sebastian has 4 different items, with there being 2 copies of silverware. This means that Baldroy can get up to 5 strength, enough to deal with any hero in the Fate deck, and also be a huge help for the 12 strength strict discipline requires. Our next 2 allies are Mayrin and Finian. Mayrin is another big help with strict discipline, as she's a 2 strength ally who gains up to 1 strength each time Sebastian moves to her location. There's no cap on how much strength Mayrin can gain, so theoretically she can be as strong as you want if you keep moving to her location. She only needs to get to 5 though to handle any hero, and I doubt you'll need her to be at more than 4 to try and complete strict discipline. After her we have Finian, who funnily enough just has Sebastian's ability but for himself. Finian gets +2 strength if he is at CL's location, letting him deal with most heroes and also being 1/3 of the amount needed for strict discipline. The last 2 allies are Pluto and Undertaker. Pluto's ability is that when Sebastian moves to his location during your turn, you can put Pluto into your hand to gain 3 power. This is great for both Grandiose Party, because it puts Pluto into your hand, as well as Dark Influence, as it nets you a large amount of power, and you need 6 power for Dark Influence to be removed. The Undertaker, meanwhile, is a bit different from the other allies. His ability is that when played or discarded from your territory, you choose up to 5 other cards from your discard pile and shuffle them into your deck. Notice it says 5 other cards. You can't use the Undertaker to shuffle himself back in when he's discarded. This ability doesn't particularly help with any of the removable effects. However, it lets you get other useful cards back in your deck, most notably the removable effects themselves. If you discarded the removable effects because you weren't ready to try and complete them yet, or you played them but failed to remove them, the Undertaker is a good way to get them in your deck so you can draw them again. We've got 4 more cards to look at, the first 2 of which are Sebastian's Schemes. Mind Control is a scheme that triggers when the targeted player moves an ally or hero. Once triggered, Sebastian may move an ally or hero with a strength of 3 or less in his territory to any location. We've seen Sebastian cares a lot about placement of both allies and heroes, so this is a major help, even if it can't move the stronger characters. Most importantly, though, is that it can move CL, and Sebastian will likely be moving CL a lot. Faustian Bargain is a unique scheme that works a bit differently from the normal. It's triggered when the targeted player gains 3 or more power, but the difference is when it's triggered. Rather than immediately being resolved like schemes normally do, instead, Sebastian sets it aside. Then, during Sebastian's next turn, he performs up to 2 play-a-card actions, then discards Faustian Bargain. It's basically akin to a scheme version of Tetsuo's Awakening Potential. This gives Sebastian many options for what he can do, most notable being that he can play several of his removable effects in a single turn. It's possible that with the ideal hand and trigger timing, Sebastian could play as many as all 5 removable effects, provided he had Phantom Hive Ring and CL at the proper locations. Playing out more than one of the removable effects at a time makes it harder for your opponent to disrupt you, so it's important to keep in mind. Lastly, we have Sebastian's 2 forms, Flawless Butler and Demonic. Flawless Butler brings Sebastian to 0 strength, and changes his ability to where all of your card costs are reduced by 1 power. In exchange for the loss of killing power, Sebastian's cards become much cheaper, which lets him hoard more power. Flawless Butler is discarded whenever you move to a location other than CL's, which means it's pretty difficult to keep in play, but it also means you can discard it and get back to Sebastian's stronger base form at a moment's notice. While Flawless Butler focuses on saving power at the cost of strength, Demonic is the exact opposite. Demonic puts Sebastian at 5 strength, and makes his ability that once per turn you may clash with a hero at any location. There is no hero with more than 5 strength, so with Demonic, you can defeat any hero via clashing. The drawback, though, is its discard, which is that after clashing, if CL is in your territory, you must discard Demonic. This essentially means that Demonic is a 3-cost card to defeat a hero, unless you're in Showdown, in which case you can use it to finish up your Showdown phase rather quickly. That was a lot, but there's still more to go. Now we're going to look at the Fate deck, starting with Sebastian's heroes. First, we have our 3 2-strength heroes, beginning with Madame Red. When Madame Red is played, the one playing her gets to choose a card from Sebastian's Fate deck or Fate discard pile, shuffle his Fate deck, and put that card on top. This means that Sebastian's Fate deck can be set up with what is likely to be the most damaging Fate, and can be targeted easily with a multi-Fate at that. After Madame Red is Baron Kelvin, who when played has the option to move CL to his location. We've mentioned plenty that Sebastian cares a lot about where CL is at, and Baron Kelvin will disrupt that positioning. Then we have Henry, who when played causes Sebastian to lose 2 power. This can set Sebastian back on completing Dark Influence, as well as just setting him back in general since he has so many cards to play and needs power to do so. Next up we have our 2 3-strength heroes, Joker and Drozzle. When Joker is played, the one playing him may discard another hero from Sebastian's territory and play that hero to any location. Essentially, Joker gets to refresh any hero you may have weakened with I'll Do It Myself, and also repeat their ability. He's a major reason you don't want to leave heroes out and about. Drozzle, when played, lets the one playing him move any number of allies to adjacent locations. No matter what, unless you've reached Showdown, this will always let your opponent move CL a little out of place, along with any other allies you've got set up thus far. Sebastian does not like it when people move his pawns. And now we have the 3 4-strength heroes, Ronald, William, and Grell. When Ronald is played, the one playing him may move Sebastian to any location. This can really throw off your plans for some removable effects like Grandiose Party or Dark Influence, and just in general be a nuisance. William, when played, lets the one playing him move a single ally to any location. Not as much movement as Drozzle, but he can move CL specifically to a really unfavorable location, as opposed to just an adjacent movement, which will be a bit harder for you to undo. Lastly is Grell, and when she's played, the one playing her may discard an ally with the strength of 1 or more from her location. This can't discard Tanaka, Baldroy if there are no items in play, and of course, CL. But all other allies are up for grabs, which can be very disruptive for Sebastian. Our final hero is Angela, the only 5-strength hero in the deck, and thus the only hero outside of Sebastian's 4-strength when at CL's location. When Angela is played, the one playing her gets to look at the top 5 cards of Sebastian's Fate deck. They then discard any number of those cards, and return the rest to the top in any order. This can be very rough for Sebastian, because if his opponent knows what they're doing, they can set him up for some devastating fates, while also putting out the most annoying to kill hero. With the heroes done, we now have the only 2 effects in the Fate deck, Cinematic Records and Do It Again. Cinematic Records lets the one playing it choose a hero with exactly 4 strength from Sebastian's Fate discard and play them. This means it can only play Ronald, William, and Grell, but given how annoying their abilities are, that makes Cinematic Records an annoying Fate to see if they are in the discard. Do It Again, meanwhile, lets the one playing it move an unattached item to any location, and move an ally to any location. This can majorly throw off Sebastian's plans by moving CL, or another well-placed ally, and really give him a hard time with chess negotiation by moving around his items. At long last, our final card is of course the challenge, which is Soul Starved. While Soul Starved is in play, during his turn, Sebastian must pay 1 power to move to CL's location. This may not seem like much, but it can add up quickly. Not only that, but if Sebastian does not have 1 power, he is then unable to move to CL's location at all. To discard Soul Starved, during his turn, if Sebastian is at CL's location, he may pay 3 power to discard it. Of course, it costs 1 power already just to move to CL's location. So unless you do something a little fancy and move CL to your location with a move action or something similar, it'll likely end up costing you 4 power at minimum. With that, we have covered everything needed for you to know how to play as Sebastian. An ideal butler capable of seemingly all tasks, you'll have to perform CL's orders flawlessly to be able to claim his soul and finally give Sebastian that high-quality meal he's been dying for. If you have any questions about Sebastian, feel free to leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer. Also, look at the description for the playlist to see all the other Anime Villainous how-to videos so you can learn about any other characters that interest you. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you again for more Anime Villainous videos in the future. Until then, farewell.